So today was preached about responsibility. And the word responsibility comes from the Latin term responsum, to be able to respond or correspond to one another. Responsibility is the fulfillment of obligations or care when doing or deciding something, or a way of responding that implies a clear knowledge of the result of fulfilling or not the obligation that has fallen on oneself. With responsibility, the individual learns to behave in a way that they can be trusted, since this guarantees the fulfillment of the commitments acquired and generates trust and ease among people. We are starting a new year where, due to the social and economic environment that's around us, each one of the citizens of this country is expected to make a commitment with responsibility in our jobs and families. Since we live in an unstable environment that requires us to make decisions and action well thought out and respond to our obligation under a knowledge of the consequences of being or not responsible. And yet, the very atmosphere of instability that is presented to us can cause such discouragement that the first thing that is affected is our desire to be a faithful fulfiller of our responsibilities, to which we must add the spiritual and service responsibilities that our faith demands, never coming to correspond, since it is impossible with the countless blessings that our God gives us to each one of us. The Word emphatically teaches us that we should give thanks in all things, for this is the will of God for us in Jesus Christ. This implies, in other words, that all that we are and are part of this perfect will of God, which is in Christ Jesus, and our total life, which includes all the responsibilities that God has placed in our life, and whose fulfillment glorifies Him in all areas of our lives. Therefore, we should be grateful for our responsibilities, for these are part of the will and purpose of God in each one of us. We have to recognize that being grateful for all the responsibilities we have in us is not naturally occurring in a human being, not even believers. We corroborate this by the complaints, breaches, and lack of passion to fulfill our responsibilities, that we have. Simply because in our fallen nature, because of sin, we want to obtain the fruits without first having to do the work. And a work without responsibility, which is not God's formula, which it is stated clearly, the former, to participate in the fruit, must work first. But what other indications does the word have, and especially in the passage of 1 Thessalonians 5, so that each of us may become fully responsible and grateful to God for our responsibilities? Let us be sober, encourage one another, and edify one another, that you recognize those who work among you, admonish the idlers, encourage the lowly, sustain the weak, be patient to all, and we must always be joyful. Let's briefly review these concepts. Let's be sober. This is a word about our maturity, our capacity for action, with all our senses fully attentive. Let them encourage one another and edify one another, that you may recognize those who labor among you, admonish the idlers, encourage the lowly, sustain the weak, be patient with it all. This word shows how to be part of a community of faith, of a church, to which is not fully accessed if we are not part of the redeemed family of God. Supports us strongly to be faithful fulfillers of our responsibilities. Encourage your brother and sister to be responsible. Build it with your words, but even more so with your example, being yourself responsible. We must always be joyful. To fulfill our responsibilities faithfully, it may not be enough to be mature and supported, because the element of passion will always be needed. Being in love with my responsibilities, having a deep taste for what I do, and this will not be possible without the ingredient of happiness, joy, and bliss in our lives. Maturity, support, and joy, recognizing that responsibilities come from God and His sovereign will and purpose to your life and my life, will give us one another, and we'll be able to learn to be grateful, convinced that the abundant grace of God covers us to be responsible before Him and grateful in all. Thank you.